Looking back, there are two pivotal moments that led Gabby and I to where we are today as co founders of a company that teaches non technical entrepreneurs how to build and launch their no code apps. The first was about 8 years ago now, when Gabby and I both decided to leave the jobs that we had at the time. Jobs where we had commutes that were frustratingly long, bosses that we didn't always agree with, and overall just a lack of control over not only our income, but our lives as a whole. So that pivotal moment was when we decided to leave all of that and become our own bosses, which involved a lot of unknowns for us, figuring out how to create not only a business, but how to work online, something that was just really new to us at the time. Fast forward a little bit from that, and the second pivotal moment was when we had grown our company, Coaching No Code Apps, to about $20,000 a month by selling some courses and consulting packages. And at that time, we kind of felt like we had hit a wall. We didn't really understand what the next level looked like or how to get there. So we ended up deciding to make a pretty significant business model change. We took everything we had learned up to that point, what did work in helping people build and launch their no code apps, what didn't work as well as we wanted it to. We made that business model change, which really enabled us to grow many levels more at both of those pivotal moments, and really at every step we took when we were aiming to go from 0 to 7 figures. There were two specific things we did that led us to success. While these two things are going to sound really, really simple, it's hard to convey just how well they work. Step number one, find a process you can use in order to hit your next goal. And step number two, trust that process. You see, every new level we reached in business involved recruiting a person and a process to help us go from where we were to where we wanted to be. And while we did this in order to grow, of course, we also looked for this process, this person, so that we could just have convenience, collaboration, speed, a reduction in challenges, and also sustainability. Could we sustain what we were doing in order to hit the goal well after we hit the goal? Looking back, it's hard to recognize where we started to where we are now, many years later. And every single day, I'm grateful for that significant change. And while it has certainly come with its ups and downs, it's something I wouldn't trade for the world because it's something that we have chosen. It's something we've created. It's not something that a boss has delegated to us, for example. And in this video, I'm gonna help you find the same for yourself. Now, before we dive in too far, we've been helping first-time app founders go from idea to pilot app for years now. And if you're interested in seeing some of what they've built, head to coachingnocodeapps.com/no code app showcase. I'll drop a link in the description below. You can actually see some demos of what those founders have built. Step number one, finding a process. What I always like to do when aiming to hit any goal in business is understand where I'm at now, as well as where I want to go. Now, that sounds simple enough, but usually where you're at and where you want to be, there's a pretty big gap involved. So maybe, for example, right now, you are working a 9 to 5 job that you really want to get out of. And your ideal scenario is owning and operating an app-based business that fully sustains the lifestyle you want. Now, there's a pretty big gap involved there, a number of different steps. And so instead of looking for help going from where you are now to that end goal, break that up into micro processes. Create milestones for yourself. Not only is that going to make your goal a lot more achievable, but it's also going to help you in finding the right help and guidance along the way because you can get hyper specific for getting help with certain phases. So, for example, going from having a 9 to 5 job to having an app based business that you operate and control. Well, the first step of that might be to build the first version of your product and bring pilot users on board so you can get your initial validation and start expanding from there. Now, there's going to be lots of steps after that, but those are different levels. So, first, identify the exact process that you need help with, and then find someone who offers help with that process and who has helped people achieve the end result of it before. Okay, so to simplify, find someone who has gone before you. Now, this can be really simple if you are looking for help building that first version of your app, for example. You can look at portfolio pieces or client case studies or client testimonials. Essentially, you're looking to make sure that the person or the company who you might be going to for help has done the thing or helped people do the thing that you want to do. Finding someone who has helped others achieve what you want is not a very hard thing to do. It's pretty simple. But the next part really involves you making sure that the process, the path in hitting the goal actually resonates with you. So, what I mean by that, for example, every time I have looked for help in reaching a specific goal, I've always invested in groups or programs or coaches where there's also peer access because I like collaboration. I just enjoy that. It really sparks a lot of creativity with me. Now, is that a necessity? No, but it's just a preference. So you have to find the process, but then find one that resonates with you because even if that process has helped tons and tons of other people reach success, it might not work for you if it's simply not right for you. For example, very early on, I worked in a program where I just had one to one access with a coach every single week. It was hyper focused, really specific, but I didn't really enjoy it that much, right? It worked, certainly. It just wasn't really for me. So, the first decision I've always made in hitting business goals has been to find that process. But the second decision to me is a lot more important, and that is to trust the process you've found. I've actually always looked at this as kind of a superpower in and of itself, right? If I've chosen a process to help me reach a goal, I am going to go all in and trust that process because I've already done my due diligence to make sure that process has worked for other people. So I know that at its core, it works. It's pretty simple. So it's up to me to now put trust into that process and follow every single step to a T in order to see the same results. You see, the reason I look for processes to follow is because I know that in achieving the thing I want to do, I lack experience. So I'm not going to veer away from what the person with the experience is telling me to do. I'm going to hone in and do every single step perfectly. That said, I have made mistakes with this before. For example, at one point, I enrolled myself into two different coaching and mentorship programs. Now, both of them had the exact same end goal, but both of them had their own paths and processes to follow in order to hit that goal. Now, both of them worked for the people who went through them, but when I went through both, neither of them worked. And that's because I was trying to pull from two different processes, mix them together, and that was actually spreading my focus. So even though components that I was using both worked, I didn't actually see any success. Now, the reason I emphasize that is because when you're going from where you are now to where you want to be, for example, maybe in that 9 to 5 job to running and operating your own app-based business, that all that in between, it's hard. It's full of challenges. And that means it's full of ups and downs too. And so in my experience, anytime you hit the downs, the low points, it's easy to start looking outwards. What can I be doing differently? And that's when you start to veer from the process and pull in other tactics, other strategies that spread your focus too thinly and kind of muddy the waters, when in reality, You just need to be doubling down on what works so that you can get to the other side of that low and go back up. At the end of the day, lots of strategies work. In fact, most can. It's the focus on one single thing with consistency that actually brings those results. I mean, if you go into a bookstore and you look at the diet and nutrition section, you're going to see hundreds of books with different diets that claim to be the best. Now, I guarantee you, if you follow any of those with perfection, they're probably all going to work. But when you start pulling from all the different ones and trying to do all the different things, they're not going to work together because the focus isn't there. So choose your process, trust that process, and then stick to it. Now, while this is a really simple concept, the reason why I think it's so important to be mindful of it is because the availability of resources and information, and just of people saying that their process is the one that works, because all of that is so high, it's all around us. Go onto any social media platform and you're inundated with it, right? Because of that, it can be really hard to navigate, honestly, and to find what works to hit your goals. But if you can turn off the noise around you and make some really simple decisions, you can achieve the success that you're after. And this applies to any process or any goal you want to hit. At the end of the day, it's not necessarily about the strategy itself. It's just, have other people use this to be successful? If yes, does it resonate with you? If yes, then focus. Focus on that alone because that is what's going to get you to your goal. All right, listen, I hope this was helpful because these are two things that have been massively instrumental in reaching our own success. So use this to build and launch your app. And hey, we'll see you in the next one.